Great pleasure right now to talk a little golf with the Golf World Executive Editor, Ron Sirak, who joined us today from the Jacksonville area. And a lot of news going on in the world of golf, particularly with the Hall of Fame ceremonies we had the other night, and the LPGA has a new commissioner. A lot of news going on with that. Let's spend a few minutes getting an update right now. And Ron, thanks for being with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You mentioned just previously before we went on the air, you were at the Hall of Fame ceremonies. I've been through that part. I've not been to the Hall of Fame to see it in depth, but that's a nice place up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really gorgeous. And the acceptance speeches this year were really exceptional. Jose Maria Olazabal, Lanny Watkins, Christy O'Connor Sr., and President Eisenhower were the four inductees this year. And Olazabal's speech in particular was very moving and very touching. And you can see a guy like Lanny Watkins, and the same thing last year with Curtis Strange. It's always amusing to see these guys who are such tough, gritty competitors and see how emotional they get when they get the honor of going into the Hall of Fame.
We'll talk a few minutes about the LPGA. They have a new commissioner, Michael Awan, and a kind of interesting situation earlier this summer. Ron, I'm sure you've covered it in depth with, I guess, the committee or whoever the board that runs the LPGA, including a lot of players, got together and basically said to the commissioner at that time, you're out, right? That's what happened.
Well, essentially, you had about a dozen of the top players, the real stars on the tour. You're talking the Paula Kramers and the Natalie Golduses and the Christy Kerrs, and they got together. They signed a letter saying that they had no confidence in Commissioner Carolyn Bivens, and right the Monday after the Women's U.S. Open, she was sort of forced out of office, serving really less than 4 years there, and leaving at a time when the tour right now is in a very difficult position between some of the business relationships that she strained while she was commissioner, and then the fact that the economy turned so badly. Right now they have, fewer than 20 tournaments right now, as of now, signed for next year. And you know, they're looking at probably having a schedule that's going to be the weakest schedule they've had since 1971.
Now, in particular, the television coverage the last few years, there's been less of it, and you have to look for it now. A lot of the tournaments were on the Golf Channel or tape delayed later on, so it's harder to find LPGA golf on television, too, the last few years.
Yeah, they're going next year. Starting next year, they're going to be having the Golf Channel is going to be their full-time cable TV partner. But that's news that comes with mixed blessings because the PGA Tour has a 15-year contract with the Golf Channel. PGA Tour, Champions Tour, Nationwide Tour are sort of all in line in front of the LPGA, and I think what we're going to see next year, we saw a little bit this year at the Women's Canadian Open. They had the top 5 and the top 50 in the world ranking in the field, and the Saturday round was on TV at from 11:30 at night to 2 in the morning on the Golf Channel, and you know, that's not going to help that product. It needs two things right now. It needs better TV exposure, and it needs a star to step up and take the place of Annika Sorenstam. This was truly a year without a dominant player on that tour, and professional golf needs dominant players. I think, you know, all the individual sports, golf, tennis, boxing, they need that one individual that everybody's competing against.
You mentioned a couple of names before, Paula Kramer from this area where we're over in the Sarasota, Tampa Bay area, and Natalie Golduss as well. Two very attractive women, but very good players. But Golduss has not broken through yet. Kramer has sort of, but probably not to the extent that the tour needs, right, to be that number one player.
Well, she's got 8 wins, which at the age of 23 is extremely impressive. She hasn't won a major championship yet, and you know, I realized this year that part of what Annika Sorenstam gave that tour for so many years, for virtually 15 years, is every time she teed it up, she was in contention. You know, she never missed a cut. She had a streak in there from 01 through 06 where she won 43 out of 104 tournaments and finished in the top 10 86 times. You know, and so the fans, there was a familiarity there. They were always going out, and they knew on Sunday that Annika would be in the hunt. And we had an odd year this year in the LPGA where, you know, if we had to take the vote right now for Player of the Year, I'm not sure who it would be. There wasn't a dominant player out there. We thought Ochoa would be that person, and she sort of had what for her was a ho-hum year this year, winning a couple of times, no majors. They need a clear star to step forward and say, hey, this is my tour.
Michael Wan comes from the golf and hockey equipment industries, named the new commissioner last week up in New York. Have you had a chance to talk to him, and what do you know about him?
Yeah, talked with him briefly after the press conference in New York where he was introduced. He's got a business experience in golf. It's not really in-depth. He spent less than 2 years at Wilson. He spent a little less than 4 years at TaylorMade. He's a marketing guy. He was the brand manager for Crest Toothpaste when he was at Procter & Gamble, and most recently has been the CEO of this hockey equipment company. So he knows how to market. Now, he also has a passion for the game of golf. He was one of those kids when he was in high school. He cut greens at 5:30 in the morning on his local course so that he could play free golf at 3:30 in the afternoon when he got out of school. He loves the game, and he clearly knows how to market. As I said, he's taken over probably the single most challenging time the tour's had, and next year's its 60th year as an organization. And the challenges that he's facing are enormous.
The LPGA in particular, the Asian players, if you've seen that the last few years, have really dominated. You look at the leaderboards every week, and maybe 7 out of the top 10 players each week seem to be from the Asian countries, and I guess that's good for the rest of the world. Is that hurting, in your opinion, the marketing in America?
Well, it certainly does help the marketing in the rest of the world. The single biggest revenue stream the LPGA has right now is the Korean TV rights money, so it's been beneficial in that way. I think the problem has been not so much that there's too many Koreans on the LPGA, but again, there hasn't been a standout breakout player. American fans became rallied behind and became affectionate for Sirak, when she won 24 tournaments, 5 majors. When you have multiple opportunities to tell a player's story, the fans get to know them and they want to learn more about them. But Sirak has won 5 majors. Since 2004, 6 other Korean women have won majors, but nobody more than once, So you don't have that time to really let the American audience into their background. And because of the language barrier, it sometimes is more of a struggle. But, that's our job. The media's job is to tell the American fans who these players are. But if there was a Sirak out there, the whole Korean situation would have a much different impact on the LPGA.
Just to kind of combine all the tours together, it's going to be challenging in the next couple of years because of a sponsorship. That's the basic situation golf tournaments need, a title sponsor. The Champions Tour, that seems to be a tour that nobody even talks about anymore. You can hardly find that. The finals that they had last weekend were kind of buried on a Sunday afternoon. Just your thoughts in the next year or two. Are all the tours going to be suffering, or are they going to come back?
I think that we're entering a time when there's going to need to be some very innovative ways of looking at things. One of the possibilities for the LPGA is to merge with the Japan LPGA and with the Ladies European Tour and form a truly global tour, maybe play a third in Europe, a third in Asia, a third in the U.S. I would love to see the PGA Tour take over the LPGA and work on marketing products together. I think that they could do some very interesting non-traditional things, have some co-ed events, have some events like we're going to have at the U.S. Open, in 2014, the women's and men's Open are going to be on back-to-back weeks at Pinehurst. How about have a tournament like that where they're both competing at the same venue on the same week? Different tees, not competing against each other. There's a men's winner and a women's winner. But I wouldn't mind seeing PGA Tour and the LPGA working together. I think those are the 2 most marketable products out there right now.
I think just having the television coverage of both of those events or both tours in the same day, that'd be a great idea. I'd like to see that. Kind of like they do with the marathon. They run the marathon with men and women at the same time. Why not do it with golf? It's a good idea.
Yeah, look at tennis. I mean, you have U.S. Open tennis going on at the same time with the men and the women. There are ways to do things like that. And I think if the PGA Tour on the LPGA, they could leverage their power to get better TV exposure for the women. And I do think that the LPGA has a great product, and if people saw it more, if it had better TV exposure, it would be a lot more popular.
We're talking with Golf World Executive Editor Ron Sirak today. And Ron, I know the golf season, it does go year-round, but it's kind of winding down right now. I guess we are heading into what they call the silly season, but we look forward to a great 2010. And Ron, hopefully we can talk to you again maybe after the turn of the calendar. We'll have you back on. Thanks for being with us today.
Be my pleasure anytime.